Hey everyone, this is Fumbles here, coming at you with Green Steel. And not just any Green Steel, the new Jund. The new bounce package, but it's not my characters for the most part, it's mostly your characters. I present this very, very fun deck to play. I would like to call it There Is No Secret Cal level, but I would be stealing that name from somebody else. This deck has done work for me in testing, and then now with Pixelborn Connect with Set 5 Legal, I'm able to kind of have a lot of fun with some of my games. We're still early on in the season, so a lot of these things are subject to change. But for right now, I really enjoy the flexibility with this deck, the low uninkable count, the idea that you have many different shift lines you could play around. And so, honestly, this is going to be my deck for the beginning of this format. And I could kind of go over why some of those choices are there. So this deck solely rotates around Clarabelle. I think that card is insanely good. I think it's the best legendary that's been presented this set. And truly a meta-defining card. I think it has its strengths against purple decks. The purple decks thrive against drawing cards. It's doing very well for me against wheel decks so far. And we're trying to see how it performs against red decks. But red seems to be in its own weird bubble of if it can't beat Daisy, let's try to be lower to the ground. So we're trying to figure out what would be best for this deck if red rises in popularity, where a Be Prepared could really do damage to this deck. So I'll start off with the 1-drops. We're playing 8 1-drops really because there's no other 1-drops I really want to play right now. Clarabelle being a 1-drop that can destroy an item if you spend 2 with it. So you could basically have a poor man's Benja. Robin Hood obviously opens up the early shift line. Since we're playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Floodborns, it seems pretty good to throw in the Morph. And by 5 Floodborns, I mean 4 Floodborns, because I'm very good at math. The Morph has always been the target for my opponents so far, and honestly, that's kind of fine. The only time it's not fine is if I don't have the Robin Hood lined up, or if I was really willing to shift Beast that early. The 4-drop or the 3-drop Clarabelle and 3-drop Ursula have both been fantastic. You are almost always able to take the advantage of the 3-drop Clarabelle and get a card from it. The Ursula, of course, being one of the best cards to be printed in green, I think strikes even more now because people are playing very squishy characters with aggro, and if you're able to capitalize on a double Storm Rage on, it's 2 card draws if you could clear an entire board with the Strength of the Raging Fire. So that card is still as strong as it ever was. And of course we have Pete. Pete is a very interesting card. I don't think he's end all be all the best card to play early. He's definitely a later game card. I've won several games because of him. And it's just you need to make sure you drop him at the right time. Where Ursula Deceiver of All on 3 is one of the strongest cards you could play on 3, Pete is very strong when you have like 8 ink. You could play Pete and a Beast or Robin Hood, and then you could capitalize on the free lore that you're about to get. Beast, Tragic Hero, and Robin Hood, I think, are staples now of most green steel decks and steel decks in general. We saw a fall off of Beast, Tragic Hero's popularity in the middle and kind of end of last season, and that's mostly due to it's kind of a play and hope your opponent does nothing. This card is very good in this format because we could shift with Morph, and we could sing either Bruno, we could sing Under the Sea early. We have a lot of options now with shifting Beast early, and not to mention it's our alternative card draw into Clarabelle. Robin Hood, I don't think there's much to say about Robin Hood. I think that card is just insanely good. We're not really afraid of Medusa with this deck, so the age-old, if it dies to Medusa, don't play it, doesn't really apply here because Medusas are either being removed or are too slow, and at the end of the day, as long as we get Clarabelle down, we should lock that game up. Mother Gothel and the Mother Gothel shift line are 2 very underrated cards. The 2-drop Mother Gothel is a 5-cost bounce any character back to your opponent's hand. That is very strong later in the game. Earlier on 2 or early game, you most likely will not be using that ability. That is for when you top deck one of these lower cost characters and they have some kind of ability later in the game. It makes them much more powerful than people realize, I think. So being able to choose what character you bounce back. So let's say I paid 5 for that and I'm at 9 ink. I could then shift Gothel and bounce 2 characters back in that same turn. Very rare scenarios where that happens so far, but it has happened once or twice for me. But the Mother Gothel shift line and the Clarabelle are really good, and it's purely because of their stat lines. 4-6 and 5-6 are very hard for decks to deal with. We've seen this with Perdita, where a 1-6 is very hard to kill. We've seen this with Flaversham, with Robin Hood. 6 health seems to be the sweet spot for a lot of these decks. If that character has 6 health, they have to throw 2 foxes into it. They have to use multiple songs to remove it. It doesn't die to Zeus, right? So we take those kind of things and we expand on them by having more health and more attack. So 5-6 and 4-6. 4 attack is a lot on 4. On turn 4, a 4-6 is insane. And then on 5, if you have a 5-6, nothing's really killing it. Most people throw their entire boards into killing Clarabelle, and I'll welcome that trade, right? Because Clarabelle's ability is at the end of your turn, you draw as many cards as your opponent. If you shift her and then you play a You're Welcome, you're able to put 2 cards back into their hand and guarantee that you draw at least 2 cards, hopefully. And honestly, this card is already kind of broken the meta for me. I think this is the best legendary, like I said. And I think that once people catch on to Clarabelle, it will fall off because having a Clarabelle into a Clarabelle, like in mirrors, has been very awkward. If people start killing it with dragons or other cards in that nature, then it's going to be losing its value, right? But as the meta stands right now, everything's pretty squishy and not really swinging, right? Everybody's questing with aggro decks, and if you're playing blue steels and things like that, you're ramping. So as long as we're able to get our Clarabelle down, and once we get to around 6 ink, we're kind of able to control the game completely. With either your welcomes, we don't talk about Bruno's, and my addition to this deck is Under the Sea. I think Under the Sea is one of those cards that if you're in a green deck right now, needs to be ran. So for example, I play a 1-drop, I play a 2-drop, and then 3-drop, and then I shift with a 5 cost or something of that nature. I could sing Under the Sea on turn 4. So when you look at this, it's so strong to think that you would shut down aggro on turn 4. They'll probably be over 10 lore at that point, but hopefully you're able to slow them down with an Ursula Deceiver of All or your Robin Hood shift line or something of that nature. But this card is much better, in my opinion, than Zeus right now. And I think if that continues to go that way, I think I might even increase how many Under the Seas I have just for consistency. But you can't really fault this deck for having 6 uninkables. I don't remember the last time I played 6 uninkables. I'm traditionally a red-blue player. I like control matchups, and this seems very control, but mid-range control, I would say. And we'll just see if we... Hey, this is Future Fumbles here. I just wanted to highlight some options of what else you could use besides Pete, besides, Under the Sea. I mentioned in the video that you could play Zeus instead of Under the Sea. I don't think I mentioned the Ursula 2-drop at this moment. I think I'm going to try out some Ursula 2-drop because this deck has some weaknesses against Steel Song. And in Steel Mirrors, of course, whoever has the removal first might start having the tempo and momentum to take over the game. Other things I might try, I might increase the Pete's. I might decrease maybe your Welcome. But just wanted to mention that. I forgot to mention the 2-drop Ursula, which is a great card and should not be not considered. Thank you for watching.
Moo, 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 moo.